Hello. Today we're going to cover how to add a point folder to Pulse and get it to set up to sync the files in the point folder into your Pulse system. Now this is going to be an administrative function, so if you do not have the administrative rights, you will need to contact your administrator to have them add that. So first we're going to go up here to our initials in the top right corner of Pulse. And we're going to go to our settings button. And when we're in here, we're going to go down to branches on the left. Now in here, you may only have one branch name labeled as main branch. You might also have several like we do here in this particular setup. If you only have main branch, that's fine. You won't need to do this part by choosing which branch it's associated with. But if you do have multiple, you're going to select the branch that this folder is going to be part of, and basically that means that the address information, contact information for that branch would be used for the emails, and it's basically assigned specifically for use by the people in that location. So we've got our test branch here that we're going to add a folder to. And then we're going to go down here to add point folder. So we're going to go down here and choose a couple of folders here. We've got these three that we're going to add. And at this time we can also assign what types of files are going to be generally stored in these folders. I tend to like to select the folders that I'm going to add and hit add. Then I don't have quite as much to deal with in the list. And I still have that option here under loan status to choose the type of file. Now the way that we classify files is archived loans, which would be like your closed folders, active loans, which would be your in-process processing folder, underwriting folder, any of those active TRID compliant type files where you're actively progressing on them. We have an active leads folder, which would be like your leads folder in point. If you call it prospects or origination, that kind of idea. It does not actually refer to the prospect portion of a point file. Pulse is not set up to actually distinguish your different file types within a folder. We're actually looking at the folder as a whole. So this button here, prospect versus borrower, is not what we're discussing. It's actually the folder name. So when we add a folder to Pulse, we're actually adding both of these as one unit called primary data folder or prospects or processing or whatever you've called the folder. So if you are using a prospect and borrower piece of a folder, we would encourage you to maybe alter your process a little bit and have a different data folder entirely that you would use to replace this movement between prospect and borrower, to actually move it between primary data folder and another one maybe called in process or processing or so forth, instead of doing these two radio buttons below. So going back to this, we're going to call the Houston processing folder active loans because that is our active working folder for our loans. We're going to call the Houston closed archived loans, and Houston archived, we're also going to call that archived loans. The fourth one in this list that I didn't mention yet, archived leads. This would be like your adverse, canceled, denied, withdrawn, junk folder, whatever you call it. But that's the idea, is that these are not completed files. They stopped somewhere within the process, and for the foreseeable future will not be closing on their loan. Now you can have multiple folders assigned to a particular status, like I have in this case, 2 archived alone folders. That's perfectly acceptable. And any of the statuses you can do this with. So it's not just your terminal statuses like archived loans or archived leads. It can also be your leads, active leads, or active loans type status as well. But once we have these designated, we're going to go down here and save. And this is going to somewhat attach that folder to our branch. Now you'll notice in the column here enabled, it's saying no. So we need to enable these folders to actually allow them to sync. So we're going to select all the folders because they're all disabled, but you can also just choose one at a time if there's only a folder in the list that you would prefer to enable. Select enable. That's going to change it to yes, and again we're going to hit save. This is going to get us 3 syncing folders, and these will sync in generally, depending on the size, within about 10 or 15 minutes, but you should see some of these files start to move in fairly quickly. Now to disable a folder, it's the exact opposite. We're going to select the folders, hit disable, and save. So now we have these disabled folders, and if we don't want them anymore, don't plan on using them again, it's worth it just to take them and remove them out of the list, just so that they don't become accidentally enabled for some reason. And then again, we're going to save. And this removes those from the branch. Any files you don't have to go back and clean up or anything like that. We're just going to turn them off and remove them out of your list. So we have successfully added folders and removed folders.